Welcome to Between the Lines of Crime. This story is rooted in tragedy, one that should have made headlines on its own, without a family having to fight to be heard. Shannan GIlbert and all the other women now forever linked to the Long Island serial killer. They deserve their names back, their stories, a moment to be seen again as something more than victims, as who they really were. With that in mind, let's begin. Before her name was tied to one of the most haunting investigations in recent memory, Shannan GIlbert was just a girl trying to find her place in the world that rarely offered her safety, much less stability. She was born on October 24, 1986, in Lancaster, PA, but spent most of her childhood in Ellenville, New York. Shannan was the oldest of 4 sisters, raised by her mother, Mary, under often difficult, unstable conditions. According to family accounts and court documents, she spent time in foster care and bounced between homes. Her mother, Mary GIlbert, would later speak openly about the pain of those early years and the guilt she carried for the struggles her children endured. Shannan was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a young age, a diagnosis that shaped her emotional world, but never defined her. Family have said she resisted treatment, wasn't always consistent with medication, and often kept her pain to herself. It was a battle she largely fought alone. But if there's one thing everyone agrees on, it's this. Shannan was sharp, resilient, and fiercely independent, even when the odds were stacked against her. She held on to her ambition. She dreamed of becoming a singer. She loved to sing, and her family remembers her talking about recording music and becoming an entertainer. She also spoke seriously about going to cosmetology school. She wanted to become a hairdresser, a career that for her meant something stable, something creative, something of her own. According to her family, it wasn't just talk. She genuinely saw it as a way to support herself and eventually live a different kind of life. Like so many young women trying to break out of survival mode, Shannan was chasing options. She was looking for something that made her feel seen, something that gave her control over her own future. That's what gets lost in stories like hers. Not just what happened, but what could have been. Shannan had a natural curiosity and a quick wit, and she talked often about wanting more out of life, not just for herself, but for the people she loved. As she moved into adulthood, Shannan relocated to Jersey City, and again, later New York, trying to build something of her own. Like many women in vulnerable circumstances, she began working as an escort, advertising through Craigslist and booking clients with the help of a driver. It was a decision shaped by survival, by financial need, and by a desire for control in a world that rarely offered any. It also created distance between her and parts of her family, but even then, her mother remained a steady, concerned presence, checking in on her and holding on to hope that things would turn around. And through it all, Shannan kept going. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying to chase a dream, trying to stay afloat, trying to live on her own terms. Shannan GIlbert was more than the sum of her circumstances. She was intelligent, outspoken, and determined. People close to her described her as fiercely independent, sometimes stubborn, always strong. She was a fighter, her sister Sherry GIlbert once said. She wasn't afraid of anything. She would walk into a room like she owned it. Shannan was protective of her sisters and took on a quiet but unmistakable sense of responsibility for her family. That same energy fueled her desire to break out of the cycle she was born into, to build something better. She had a hard life, but she had plans, her mother Mary said in an interview. She wanted to make something of herself. She just needed someone to give her a chance. She was also warm, funny, and full of personality, someone who could light up a room when she let her guard down. She loved to sing, she wrote her own lyrics, and she once told her sister she wanted to become famous, not for the attention or the money, but so she could finally be free. She once told me, "I don't want to just exist, I want to matter," Sherry remembered. And she did matter. She still does matter. In a haunting, painful way, she made sure the others did too. If not for the desperate search to find Shannan GIlbert, the remains of many other women may never have been uncovered. The Gilgo Four, the unidentified victims, the cold cases that had sat in silence, they might still be buried, forgotten by a system that never looked hard enough. Her life wasn't a footnote, it was a catalyst. Her mother, Mary GIlbert, refused to let her name fade, and because of that refusal, the Long Island serial unaliver case was cracked open. She mattered to the families who finally got a knock on their door. She mattered. to the voices that had been silenced for far too long. And while it should never have taken this kind of loss to shine that light, it's because of Shannan that so many truths were finally dragged out of the dark. Shannan didn't have an easy life, but she moved through it with fight and fire. And that's what people forget. She wasn't a victim of a system that failed her. She was a survivor, a fighter, right up until the very end.